And when I walked in here a couple months ago, I was just like, wow, there's an environment where we can actually be immersed and bring the fun back into your game. We get bored, same thing. I lived in a gym, and then when I got in these pods, I was like, who created this? And Sid is the founder and CEO and the man behind all of this technology, and he just told me the whole story. So today we're going to share that story with you, and then we have our guest running expert and marathon. I guess you've done the world record holder in treadmill running and the subway, New York subway system. There's a lot of world records that have been broken in this room. Chris Salazar? Solars. Chris Solars. And
He's much better than Al Salazar.
and then Stuart is our head running coach, which you guys, I'm sure, run with Stuart. He's the guru of running in New York City. So I'd like to pass the mic on to Sid Rahman, the CEO and founder and chief engineer of Roam 149.
Thank you so much, Derek and Stuart. Thank you for helping put together this evening's session, and thank you, Chris Solars. I'm very excited to have someone like him actually come in, and we've done a little demo for him, and love to get his opinion on our efforts thus far. So the origins of this idea was about 2 years ago. I'm a trail runner. I don't do a lot of road running, but I like trail running, and the one thing I missed, especially in the winter and on days I couldn't get out soon enough, is being able to run trail because it's dangerous, and as my shins will show, I've had my share of spills. So my wife did try to help me out and bought me a nice treadmill that did some pretty decent angles so that I could simulate running up and down a hill. But the thing I hated about it was very slow, and the screen was kind of small and didn't really do any justice to what Mother Nature gave me in terms of the experience. So I said, okay, maybe one day I'll do something about it. Well, that one day came about at the beginning of the pandemic. I have a allied business where I build construction automation equipment and robots, and when the pandemic started, I realized that that business might have to hit pause. Unemployment was already at 11%. My business partner, suggested I even wind down that unit because our normal construction business was doing okay, but the idea of continuing with R&D at that time seemed a little bit difficult to swallow. So I said, okay, but having the luxury of PPP money. Yes, I did receive PPP money, and I'm very thankful for it. I asked him to give me some more time to test out a pet idea I had, and he said, well, what is it? I said, I want to build a reactive treadmill. And he's like, what? On my money? No friggin' way. And he actually said that. If you meet him, he uses even more colorful language. But I said, all right, but you know what? It's PPP money. Give me 10 weeks and, let me see what I can do with it. So, and here's where, fate conspired in my favor. I have some amazing young men, engineers, that were working with me. A couple of new engineers had just joined me because some of the offers they had from other companies had been rescinded due to the pandemic. One of my top engineers, John, is sitting here, and I'll introduce you to him. So here I am, trying a startup idea with 6 engineers that were themselves joining a company for the first time. So startups in startups, right? So that was a pretty interesting situation. But within a few weeks, I felt that we were making headway. And remember, we have some robotics background, so we understand motors and control systems and things like that. And I said, how hard a treadmill can it be, to incorporate some of the same things that we already knew how to do well. So the key thing about the whole exercise was to make it reactive. And to make it reactive, we needed to figure out how to get it to go up and down, to follow the terrain. And that we achieved within about, I'd say, a few months of experimenting with different designs. And then thereafter, the control system, I wanted something that again gave me the liberty of not having to push buttons to speed up or slow down. And we started using a gaming platform for the software. And so now we have a terrain that not only can we go in a preordained manner, but we can go right or left or explore. So all of it came together with the control system that you're going to witness, which is where you're able to speed up, slow down, or turn right or left within the game. So what we've really created is a game controller. The treadmill is now really a game controller, much like you would use to play any other game. The last thing, the pod, was the final expression of trying to have an immersive environment. And that came later in the game. But I felt that now that we had a reactive treadmill and we had a good control system, how can I put the person into the scene as much as possible? And hopefully we've achieved it with current technology being what it is. So that is the quick story of how this came about. In terms of timeline, I'm very happy to say we started July 5th, 2020. The design was completed around, I would say, May of 2021. And we opened this place in April of 2022. So in under 2 years, we went from concept to will never be complete, near completion. And we're very fortunate in being able to use this as a lab. We've made improvements even since we've opened. The software is constantly evolving, and it is in forums like this that I really get to test it on a lot of people. And we have paying customers, of course, but having serious runners come on it, people like Chris, people like Stuart, who have given us the wind behind our back to say that we're on the right track. And in that sense, I feel very fortunate. So a little bit about Room 149, and I'm going to turn it over to Stuart. So finding this place was, again, a fortunate bit of luck. We were still in the pandemic when I started looking in September. Of course, vaccines had come out, but it was still a pretty scary, situation. So when I found the space, I felt it was appropriate for what we're trying to do. It's in Chelsea. It's a good location. And we put in a lot of filtration systems in here. So each booth has its own air supply. We have a UVC filter, etc., etc. So we have a UVC filter, etc., etc. So we try to make it as COVID-proof as possible. And the final thing that happened was the good luck for Derek to answer an ad that I placed for someone to help me with the gym operations. And as he said, when he came and saw the place and spoke with me, he said, I think I can, help and make this a reality. He's done more than that. He's brought his own talents, and especially with his complete knowledge of fitness, and even extending into things that I had never experienced, like sound yoga. So those things have made this place, I think, truly complete in terms of a fitness experience. So you can go from cardio to strength training to stretching and even mindfulness, such as yoga. So we're very happy that we finally found a formula, if you will, because it seems that any of these boutique fitness places need something unique, something that people can, cherish. The latest entrant to our string of good luck is Stuart. When I knew about him through, Roberto, you guys might know Roberto, he told me who Stuart was, and he said Stuart might be interested in coming and helping you out. And after I met Stuart and I saw his resume, I was like, really? This is amazing that someone with that kind of resume would consider, helping us out in being known for, a good running experience. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stuart and let him explain how he's joining us on the journey.
Thank you, Sid. Actually, I've said this once before, so some people here have heard it, but if he had known exactly what sort of a coach and runner I was, he probably would not have said any of that. Because I'm like bordering on Luddite as far as tech and VR and all those sorts of things are really foreign to me, so much so that the runners I coach have to tell me how fast we're going because I've never had one of these darn speedometer watches. That's how backward I am. But when Roberto did ask me to come in, I was skeptical. I hadn't met Sid, and I said, "What a VR gym for running? I don't need that. I'm going to run outside like I always do." But I did come in, and without any exaggeration, my first run on one of these treadmills sold me on it, convinced me, completely changed my mind. And I was converted doubly. And the first time was by how well it imitates outdoor running, which is Sid Street. I mean, he was a trail runner. He wanted to put trail running inside. How hard is that? I would say, unlike what he says, it took a couple months. I've been running on treadmills for 50 years. And they've been the same all that time. They've basically been going 12 miles an hour and up to 15% grade on a slow, gradual incline up and down to flat again. He seems to have jumped over about 5 steps, is how I see it. And so when I saw the achievement alone, I was just sort of blown away. But then the second step of the conversion came when I was running on one of his courses, which takes you up the mountain. And you're supposed to find a temple. And while I was running up this thing, I was being led by one of the receptionists here who sort of kept sending me off course. And I was like, where is the temple? And I'm running at like 12%, 14% grade. He had it set to maximum, so it goes to 19 degrees. Now, I've never run on that, probably outside, let alone on a treadmill. But I'm running up this thing, trudging up, the endless hill, and then I see the temple. And I go toward the temple, and I finally crest the rise and run down a hallway, and the gong sounds. And I felt this incredible sense of accomplishment. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm in virtual reality. I'm playing a game. I'm playing a running game, and yet I just ran really hard, soaked through my shirt, and got a great workout. How can I judge this as anything but an advance? And it is an advance. And since I've come on here, I've Sid found out that I can do some writing, and so I've been doing a little bit of writing for the blog that Sid has and some of the course descriptions and things like that. And I've distilled my reaction to the place down to a catchphrase. You need those catchphrases. And the phrase that it's a little longer than a catchphrase, but it is that treadmills used to be used when you couldn't run outside. This treadmill lets you do things that you can't do outside. That's a total reversal. The example I love to use is the Boston Marathon. I've been trying to coach people for that race for my whole racing, running, coaching career. First 15 miles, generally downhill. I've sent people all over New York trying to find the longest downhill. It's about 1,000 meters. That's how far I've been able to find the downhill. The whole Boston course is going to be programmed into this. I can bring people who want to run Boston, and they can literally callous their quads against the Boston course by training in here. Same with Fifth Avenue Mile for a slightly different reason. There's a woman in this room who I paced in the Fifth Avenue Mile, who broke 6 minutes that day, and who really, I couldn't give workouts for it that were the exact Fifth Avenue Mile course because I can't run down Fifth Avenue in the middle of the day. It's full of buses. And the sidewalk is hexagonal paving stones. And it's a downhill quarter, an uphill quarter, a downhill quarter, and a flat quarter. Now, I can't find that, as far as I know, anywhere in particular. That precise. Well, now it's programmed into. So, Allison, next time you can come, you can do time trials. Literally, think about it. You come in here, you warm up, you do a time trial on the Fifth Avenue Mile course with the exact gradients that the race has. That's precision, hardcore runner type training. It's like the next level of, precision race simulation. And we can do it in here. So that's another whole aspect. It's not just like fun and games. It's doing things you can't do outside. I didn't think I'd find that in the treadmill. I've been running on it forever, And they've always been the same, sort of the last ditch, treadmill, can't run outside, I guess I have to go to the right. So anyway, that's how I got hooked up with this place, and I'm very, very proud to be working with Sid because I'm still in awe of it. And when you see all the things it does, you probably will too. I was asked to bring people in who I thought would have something to say about running in general, but also treadmills maybe in specific. And the first person I thought of, after all of you as an audience that needed to try it out, and Sid, and please give him genuine feedback. I think he really wants that. He's already made changes since I've been here, which is like 3 weeks. He'll respond like I almost felt like I had too much power. I told him the 5,000 milestone, and he said, "Well, we can do that in about a week." And sure enough, he did. So I don't want to say too much because it'll happen. But anyway, the first guest I thought to bring in was Chris Solars, and that was because I happen to know that he has a record for treadmill running, which is kind of mind-numbing to consider, but I've seen a picture of him finishing it, and he has a big smile on his face. I don't know what to say about that. But Chris is a guy I met, I hate to say how many years ago, but yeah, 26. And when I met Chris, he looked like he was 17. He was probably about 23. And he ran for my team with the Central Park Track Club. And we started talking one day after running, and he asked me how many marathons I'd done, and I said, oh, about 50. And I was in my mid-40s. And he goes, yeah, me too. And I have to confess that I didn't necessarily believe him right off the bat. I looked at him and I said, 50 marathons? I don't know, I'm going to look that up on Marathon Guide. So I went home, I put his name in the Marathon Guide, and the list went like this. He was only 23. Well, I hate to ask how many you've done now, but I do think I'm right in saying that you have done how many Ironmans and how many days?
What's hand in 10 days?
10 Ironman triathlons in 10 days. Try to figure that out. Like where you even find that time. Is there sleeping in there? Is there eating? Eat while you're riding a bike. But things like that are his normal life. He also has 12-hour treadmill record. I don't believe he stopped at 77 miles on the treadmill. So Sid put him through his paces here, I noticed. And I heard some feedback. And I think Chris so far seems to be amenable to the experience, we call it experience treadmill. But I'd love him to talk about that, but I also, we'll want to actually. He's a good public speaker, he can tell you what he thinks. But I know you are all interested in some of the other things he's done, including the beer drinking, it's a beer drinking bar visiting record, the subway record, ask him about the subway record. but other things, but what about this, Kevin? What does it make you do?
Well, thank you, Captain. Hi, everyone. I want to say thanks to Stuart for inviting me. And I think we all know Stuart, but he's really the runner's runner here in New York City. And it's kind of like when people talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman being the author, the actor's actor. Stuart has run a 2:28 marathon. And the thing I love most about his story is that he has a streak going back to 1987, running every single day. And my uncle had a 40-year streak. And I'm a collector myself of these type of experiences. And like my first question is always like, did you really run every single day? Wasn't there a day you were tired or hurt or injured? And if you ask Stuart about this, in 5 minutes, you will be absolutely convinced that there was not a single day that he didn't run.
All right, I didn't miss anything. I try to keep it a secret. It's not a good thing to tell people because they might think it's a good thing. It's not a good thing.
Well, it's true. I think that's maybe one of the reasons I decided not to do it myself. But I love it, and when I talk to Stuart about it, it's like, I don't think that you're crazy. I think that I'm crazy for not doing it because of how it just
Wait a minute.
just shapes your life.
What's your nickname on Central Park Travel? It's Crazy Chris.
Crazy. Fair enough. So, Sid, it's great to meet you too.
Thank you. I'm really honored. As I said, some of the people that I've met through Stuart. I mean, this is amazing.
Sid downplays his own running, by the way. But he has canyon legs, first of all.
Yeah.
And he is super efficient. And I see why he can run trails. When he gets on these things, it looks like he's doing like 8-minute miles, and you notice that the thing says 10. And he's doing 6-minute pace. Now, I'm not kidding. He's deceptive. little under the radar fast one.
Well, in my life, I've been a wannabe on a lot of things, and I'm glad that on this one at least, I'm not a wannabe. I've actually delivered something. I want to be a great runner. I want to be a drummer. I want to play cricket all day long, and some of those things have passed me by. I also tried to play the violin for 2-3 years until my wife said, "Divorce, you don't stop." I also tried to ride a horse when I was 53, and other than all the mothers that looked at me, pretty admiringly that I was riding with the teenage children, and they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because you can fall and hurt yourself." So anyway, my point is, there's a lot of things I've tried, and I'm always enthusiastic about what my body's limitations are and my mind's limitations. But just being in the company of runners, this is one of the things that's probably going to propel me to a ripe old age. and hearing his story, your story, I want that 47-year running record. That'll make me 107. So,
The record is 50-some years. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a long time. So, how do you do? How's this thing?
Well, there's like it's two different things completely, because it's a treadmill and it's a game. And like if you take those two things, two different pieces, like the gamification of running, like you said, Stuart, like it is fun to be distracted and not even realize that you're also doing a workout.
Yes.
And this is the future of health. I got really into Zwift, and I do a lot of cycling on Zwift, and all of the little tricks that they have to keep you engaged really work, right? They want you do a little bit more to get another little reward, to get more drops, to finish one more course, to complete your collection of courses, to do the task of the week, and like that's fun. People want that, and people need that encouragement. People need different types of encouragement. So I love that, and I think you really have something, and it might only be a kernel right now, but you said on the Moon course that you can actually play, you can open boxes, you can do things.
yes.
I think this introduces this game to a whole crowd of non-runners, right? It can make it fun in a different way. So I love the New York City Marathon course. I love that you can replicate every inch of this. I think there's a future there. Central Park, I'm sure, is on your list because people want to run the 6-mile loop and all the iconic courses, maybe Mount Washington Road Race, and we could easily come up with a list, but that is going to be a huge hit. So like the gamification of it all and the replication of courses and like the AR and the video of it is really exciting, and that's really novel. And the treadmill itself is smooth and nice, and the fact that it's controlled by your hand is so, it's thoughtful, and it will be the future. I think eventually nobody wants to touch buttons, and you're the first to do this, and I don't think we'll be the last.
Well, thank you.
How do you, who's tried to do speed work on a treadmill? You give up? Does this bring anything to mind? You get to the end of a 400, you hang on the rails.
Yeah,
That's what you have to do,
that's it.
While your legs are flipping behind you because it won't slow down.
Yep.
And you have to keep going whatever pace until it finally does because you've held the button down for more. It's a terrible design. And since treadmill still goes only the 5-minute pace, but I brought some people in here, and a couple of people might be in that category in the room who need to run faster than 5-minute pace to do workouts. Rami was here, he runs a 60-second quarter, you could run 4-minute pace on this. My son, who's a track guy in college, and he was maxing it out at 5-minute pace. So immediately Sid said, all right, 4-minute pace it is. So in a while, we're going to have a treadmill that goes 4-minute.
Yeah. In fact,
Can we program it to do 10 by 400 with a 2-minute break, such that you don't have to use the arms at all?
yes, yes. And that is the beauty of the way we are approaching this whole project is, we have engineers both on site. John is currently one of the engineers on site, and he's with us this evening. He's doing something called procedural runs where you can program the angle, the distance you want to run, so that it can be very precise. Similarly, oh, he wants me to hold the mic. I'm sorry. So, not used to public speaking, but anyway, I have a booming voice here. So yeah, procedural runs is what will allow us to replicate any type of workout a coach would want to do without even having to raise your hands or whatever. So obviously you want to give the person still some control over, if he wants a sudden stop or something like that. But we are listening to what Stuart is telling us in terms of how the coaching experience can be enhanced. And like he said, when I conceived of this trail running, you're rarely running at those massive speeds, right? So I was more, focused on the ups and the downs, and so the moon terrain, for example, is my favorite terrain. But you're rarely going to go over 9-10 miles an hour on that. But then when he said that, I have a need for a faster treadmill, we are going to develop something that will probably be here in early September, which will do the 4-minute mile, and also be able to do that at a decline that will replicate Boston. So that's the grail he has asked me to find. and I think we will get there. So it's a lab. It's an experiential type of a place where we hopefully will keep getting better. And like you said, the potential is amazing. Some of the things I'm proud of is we have on tap the ability to have wheelchairs come up onto the treadmill. The wheelchairs will obviously be powered by the person on the wheelchair, but all these trails, all these places we're building will become accessible to the most unfortunate among us that can't really use their own legs. We also have a bike version of this. We're going to be able to bolt on a bike, so we can simulate a biking experience. So the hardware side also has quite a few things in the wings that we hope to bring out very soon. But to your point, when I started, it was in one direction, but then the gaming aspect really made it possible to run an hour and not even realize it, because you're so entranced in looking at, like today, we have one of the scenes we have is called The Island. That's the one that I'm going to demonstrate probably in a few minutes, where we have this temple. But one of my engineers went and put a waterfall somewhere, which I've never seen. And I was like, oh, I want to come and check that waterfall out. So here I am, probably I should be jaded by now, but I'm not. So it's a living, breathing experience. And one other thing you had mentioned is we can also bring videos into it. So he did us the favor of going on Van Cortlandt Park a couple of weeks ago and walking the entire trail, and that trail is now being processed to be a walkable, runnable course. So that will allow us to expand our library, tenfold, because everybody could potentially be a roamer that just sends us a video. It has to be of a certain format, and then that can be turned into a run probably within a few days or whatever, depending on how many videos we get in the process. So imagine going on that trip to Spain or Portugal or wherever, right? And liking a trail and videotaping it in the right format, and sending it to us, and now you have that trail to share with the less fortunate that stayed stateside and couldn't experience that. So there's a lot of other opportunities that we see, even in tourism, and being able to experience something that you otherwise only have heard about. I mean, one of the things we're really excited, me and John, is the Great Wall of China Marathon. I think you've been there. Have you done it?
I haven't done it.
Okay, you're gonna do it.
It's on the list. I'll do it here first.
So he got started on it a while ago. We haven't completed it, but it is very ideal for this treadmill. You know, with all the ups and downs, and you know, how many of us will ever get that opportunity? So really, when we call it a metaverse gym, we're not trying to be hyperbolic. I think we truly have an opportunity here to travel to wherever we want, like the moon, and give people a sliver of that experience.
I love it.
Yeah.
So Chris, we have somebody that was checking in on our live feed, and they asked, do you think you could take the 12-hour treadmill record back?
No, it's out of my league now.
Somebody had asked that.
Yeah.
It's been broken a few times. So I broke it in 2014, and I broke it. It was a Swiss guy had done it in 76.5 miles, and I knew that was. I knew I could do 80, but I calculated the pace. It was a little over 9-minute pace, and I broke it with 5 minutes left. So I just barely broke it, but that was my calculation. I didn't need to run 80. I needed to run more than 76.5. And I got a little bit of press for it, and then it got taken down a few times. And I think it's 85 or 87 miles right now, and that's just a little bit out of my league now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting to think about the mental benefits of doing this, and you guys are very experienced endurance athletes. You know, when you're running on this, do you see like your mind engaging in a way that's similar to what you experience on very long runs? And do you think that there can be kind of like that can be learned or taught on this machine?
Yeah, so there's definitely two different components to running, in the sense that, like, one is just your body, the movement of your body, and obviously that's going to be the same. But when you're outside, you're having so much different stimuli that you're able to overcome the challenge of being indoors and being stationary. So in general, like that's the benefit of running outside. It's so much more pleasing and changing than running on a treadmill. I think with an immersive experience like this, you can easily, that's the true goal, is to forget that you are in a gym. And I think that's the ultimate plan here, is to really feel like you're indifferent to being outside or being inside. So that's, you know, it's really hard to replicate the New York City Marathon. If you guys haven't done it, it is the greatest event in the world. I've done lots and lots of marathons, and it's my favorite. I'm going to run my 20th in a row this year. So we can recreate the ups and downs and the elevation to perfection, but we really can't recreate that experience. But we can come very close, I think, with the immersive experience on the temple and on the moon. And we really just need to be distracted enough to get through a 1-hour workout and forget that we have been locked up indoors the whole time.
Yeah, I'm just curious, just history, like at what age or what event was it that you discovered, wow, I'm really good at endurance, running or biking or whatever it was? Like, when did you're like, wow, I'm good at this?
I'm good at like really long things.
Yeah.
Really long things. Well, I did my first Ironman when I was 19, and that was in 1999, and I was 20. And it was, I guess, before social media, it really felt like a really, really big deal. And now I think we're so inundated with so many superlatives that almost anything doesn't feel special anymore. And at the time, it really felt like it was the apex of my fitness. Like I would not have believed that 20 years later I would do 10 of them in a row at the same pace that I did one of them, because I was dead for. In fact, I didn't ride my bike for about 10 years afterwards. It was such a traumatizing experience to go that far that it was too much for my body at the time. But I think it's kind of like anything. Like we just get better and better at dealing with increasing stress on our bodies. And I don't think my body is special at all. But I think what has been special is how much I love it. And little by little, I just can add more and more. It can go two ways with running, right? You can try to get faster and faster at your finite distance. And that's really fun to do until you plateau. And then you can go the opposite direction. You can see how far you can go in a certain time period, or just indefinitely until you're done. And that's like what I've been most focused on over the last few years, is like, what is the limit?
How far have you run this stretch?
The farthest I ever ran was this race called the Fat Dog 120, and it's over 3 mountain ranges in Canada, and it was like 35,000 feet of elevation gain, and it took me 44 hours, and it was the only time I've been through the night twice without sleeping, just running and walking nonstop for 44 hours.
120 miles?
120 miles.
With lots of climb, lots of descent.
But there were no toll plazas, so that
Yeah, no tolls. Just a toll on my body. And
Well done.
I have another question.
Sid, my question is to you. First of all, it's amazing. And my question is, running is a group sport.
Yes.
So the question to you is, when will multiple people be able to join together from multiple locations to have the same like running experience in the same way like we do in Stuart's group?
Well,
We go for a run
So,
as a group.
so the answer to that is today. But believe me, that was not a setup. But he allowed me to segue into a feature that we've been working on for a little while, and John has almost taken us over the finish line. But we will be demonstrating what we call the multiplayer. Okay, and in that context, Gideon, right? Yeah. We are going to be able to have a leaderboard, so you can see real time, which booth is winning, or and so that will be available on a real time basis, and you'll actually see your opponent's avatar, so you can gauge how far ahead. And I'll show you in a few minutes. And then we also are working on being able to save your run in the cloud, so that on a day when I feel really brave and I want to run against Chris or Stuart or someone, I can download their avatar and maybe handicap them so that they drop down to my speed, maybe 0.6, 0.5, and then I can run with them. So those are very much in the works, and you'll see it today. So it wasn't a setup question, but thank you. We are ready to deploy that piece of technology, and we know that it's important, because the one thing we're different than some of the other treadmill-based studios is that you're in pods. You're in a way. I mean, I'm a lone runner. I like running in nature on my own, but I took that concept to heart and built the pod. But then I realized some people like to run in a group. Some people want to be in a pack as they're moving through terrain or whatever. So having the multiplayer was something that we had really hoped to be able to achieve at some point, and I believe we're there. So thank you for that question. Yeah.
My question is for Crazy Chris.
Okay.
How did you
Chris?
train for your Beer Marathon?
Drinking a lot of beer. Well, so that was the record, and the Guinness record was the most pubs visited by a team in 24 hours. And at the time, the record was 170. And this is like always a controversial record because everyone has their own opinion on what constitutes a pub crawl. But according to the Guinness Book of World Records, it is a team pub crawl is where a team of any number of participants goes to a liquor license establishment and purchases and consumes 12 ounces of beer. So not all of us had to drink, but all of us had to be there at the same time. So it's effectively the traveling salesman problem because we found this area, it was south of 14th and north of House End, between C and First. It's like a 1 square mile piece, and it has almost 500 liquor licenses and establishments. So I plotted them all on Google Maps and had to figure out like the shortest route between all of them when they were open within a 24-hour period. So, long story short, I had 13 friends, including my wife, Sebastian's mom, and and yeah, we did 250 bars in only spending about 3 minutes at each pub because we had plotted this route. It was about 31 miles to do the whole thing, and a team of 13 had 250 beers.
250.
Beers. Among you. Did you all have to run 31?
Yeah, because we all had to be together the whole time.
We all had to run 31 miles.
If you forewarned the establishments you would be visiting, like, hey, this is happening, or did you just roll it?
Well, that was like one of the rules. It was like the rules of Fight Club. You don't talk about the Guinness record because as soon as you say there's a Guinness record, people say, well, that's interesting. What's the current record? What are the rules? Does everyone have to be there? And that takes 3 minutes to explain to some random person at the bar. So we were just like a bunch of dudes doing a pub crawl, and that's just a dime a dozen. No one really cared about what we were doing. It was fun though, but the funny part was I had a team of like some beer drinking friends and running friends. And I should have known at the time, like I didn't realize that walking 31 miles over the course of the day is like a really big deal for my beer drinking friends. So by the end, a lot of them were complaining, they had blisters and they were complaining. And we cut the bars in New York City go until 4 a.m. and we finished before midnight. We thought we could do it like another 80. And I had it all planned out, and we were like, rah, 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 let's go. And we just cut it really clean at 250. We ordered 13 beers for the first time all day. We hung out for the rest of the night, and it was good. We blew the record out of the water, and it's still standing like 10 years later.
We had another, oh yeah, go ahead.
Certain training principles in mind that you just use when
Shall I translate for George? That's very, very soft voice. So yes, you have certain training principles that he applies throughout his running career that he keeps very solid, no matter what kind of thing he's training for.
Yeah, no, I love this question. Rule number one, something is better than nothing, always. You know, I have, on the Central Park Track Club, friends of ours debate, should we do 8 400s or 4 800s? And the truth is, that doesn't matter. Because if you don't do a workout that day, you have lost time, right? So even if you can just run for 1 mile or 2, like something every single day matters. I think that's probably my guiding principle has been like consistency. I am really motivated by completion. So it's probably why I have such admiration for like a streak of days and years and consistency. But for me, I'm really guided towards like running 100 miles in a week and figuring out how to do that. And I did that for most of my 30s, for 10 years. I rarely missed a week of running 100 miles every single week. And I had a series of injuries once I turned 40. I'm turning 44 soon. And these last 4 years, I've been on a journey of discovery of strength training and yoga. So I have my own streak to it that I started April 1st, 2020. And every single day, I do 12 minutes of strength training. And when I'm feeling really motivated, which is most days, I'm doing planks and push-ups and hamstring stretches. And on bad days, I'm doing really soft rolling and stretches. But for me, this is probably the most important thing in my life because I recognize the importance. I can't just run. And it's also why I love swimming and cycling now. I think it really complements running. So I think I'm different than what I would have said 10 years ago. I would have said that my body is kind of special because I've run almost every day since I was 11. And all these miles have cumulatively made me kind of a robust runner. And I think that that's somewhat true, but I really am appreciating like the cross training from cycling and swimming and how it all just fits together to be a stronger athlete.
Do we have another question in regards to what do you have in the future with your racing? Do you have anything planned?
Always. I'm going to run my running the New York City Marathon is always a highlight of my running year. I also have a streak at Boston. Boston will be my 18th in a row in April. I had a big Achilles operation earlier this year, so I knew that I needed something to like keep me really motivated. Because I find when I like have this goal, it's almost tunnel vision, and everything else in my life kind of falls into place. Like I feel like I'm happier. I think I'm a better father and husband and boss and employee when I have these goals that just motivate me. So when I had this Achilles operation, I decided to go all in on long distance swimming. And this past weekend, I swam across the Long Island Sound. It was a 16-mile swim, and it took me 9 hours. But when I mapped out my summer, I mapped out 7 of these like monstrous swims, like one every 2 weeks. So we're going on vacation to Lake Tahoe next week, and I'm going to swim the width of Lake Tahoe. And then to finish off, my 7th big one is going to be down the Potomac River. It's a 30K swim next month, which is going to take like 10 or 11 hours. So that's really what's been my focus, and it's been fantastic.
How do you tell yourself to stay in the zone on these incredible, like long runs, races? Like, how do you mentally like stay in the, especially the 44-hour one? That's what I mean.
Well, I think sometimes I tell myself, I remind myself that I paid for this. You know, like I took time off, I traveled, I paid money, I'm away from my family. You know, I recognize that like I get to choose my struggles. You know, like this is something I can drop out at any minute. And my life is so relatively easy. And I have to create these challenges just to really motivate myself. So like, I think there's a lot of little tricks that I use, but it's always like a nice time to relax. It's a time to, when I was in That Dog 120, I did it with a few friends, and it's a magical little time to spend 40 hours running with your friends, right? Like you're lucky if you get to see your friend for like a 2-hour dinner once a month. And you know, here I get to spend 2 days with friends and catch up. So yeah, a little of it all.
Chris, Kevin, Rowan, 26.26. Two stories combined in my head when I was just watching you talk about what mental games you play, and that you choose the struggles that you're an endurance athlete. I was forcing you to do these things. The race in my career that made me dread more than anything else. The night before, the morning of, I would get the most upset stomach and the worst feelings of like, God, I have to go do this. Was the race that took 12 minutes for me. You know what it was?
Empire State Building?
Got it. The Empire State Building run-up is a miserable experience. It's one of the toughest things I've ever done if you race it. And anyone can walk up those things. That's not all that big a deal. If you race it, first of all, in the old days, you have to get through the door with the whole front pack of men. They started you across the lobby of the Empire State Building. You got about 30 meters, and then you went through a door the size of the front door here. So it was absolute mayhem. Being bashed into the wall, falling down, getting stepped on. It was really horrible. So that was fearful itself. But then there was the thing of first 20 floors, which have no landings, they just zigzag up. So you go totally into oxygen debt, and you look over at the wall, you know the building's 86 floors, you've heard that a million times. And you've really been going for, it seems like forever. You look over the wall and it says like 26. And you know you have 60 more floors. I dreaded it, but I did okay in it, so I always had to go back, you know. And the dovetailing of the stories is, I finally figured out how not to dread the race. And it was that I told myself, you know, if someone, the night before, my stomach told said, I said, if someone told me the race was canceled, first thing would happen would be I'd go, I don't feel bad anymore. Oh, I did that to myself with my brain. My brain was making my stomach feel bad. And the second thing would go, oh shoot, I can't defend my master's claim. No race, you know, and I'd get upset. And so I'm thinking like, why do I have these two minds? I'm actually fighting myself. So the thing was, yes, I choose to do this hard thing. There's a reason I choose to do hard things. So I should be glad I'm going to the Empire State Building, even though I'm going to see 56 and just go, I don't care how fast everyone just let me get the progress. Okay, how the story dovetails with Chris. One time I was in the lobby, the Empire State Building, run up, waiting to start, and there he was. And I thought, oh, Chris Solarz, you know, he does a lot of really long stuff. I don't know how good he's going to be on the stairs. Maybe I'll finally beat Chris Solarz at something. And I did win the Masters that day. I earned my best time ever. He got third overall. Right? On the Empire State Building. He got third against these foreign Thomas Gold. Remember Thomas Gold? I call him Thomas Dolt. This German guy, he used to grab the finishing tape, throw it on the ground. Boy, he was pretty good at it. Chris, how'd you train for that? Did you just go there, or did you spend like 2 months training for that?
Oh yeah, there was a 3-year period when I was also obsessed with stair climbing. So, and that was fun because there was no playbook for this. There, you know, you can find lots of marathon training guides, but there is no Empire State Building training guide. So I did lots of different fun little ways of running up stairwells, and I would do different techniques. I would do 1 at a time, 2 at a time, and then 3 at a time. To
Handrails,
how
no
fast-
handrails.
Oh, and that's the secret. The handrails are everything. Like you want to be as tired with your upper body as your lower body. You know, one thing I really want to say about these long races, I have this theory that most of my ultramarathon friends don't like because they want to seem like it's, you know, it is a great badge of honor to run for 100 miles. But I think every single race, when you do it right, has 100 units of pain. And when you talk to real track athletes, they tell you that the 800 meter is the hardest race in the world. And I tend to agree. I think maybe it really is, but it takes 2 minutes. How hard can 2 minutes be? But time slows down. You like live a whole lifetime in 2 minutes. And it's the same thing. Like in the 100-mile run, there's not 1 minute that feels like that. It might feel like that if you like let yourself get in your head. But one trick I always do is to like imagine that I had just been dropped into my own body and to take like stock of how I feel. And yeah, I run for 50 miles. Not really that bad. Like if I thought I was just starting because I had a big run yesterday, I would be okay. I'd be able to run 50 more miles. So like, I think doing the race right is always hard, no matter what the distance.
Yeah, people ask me, oh, marathons are so hard. You're only running a 5K? I say, I'd rather run a marathon than a 5K. And maybe the quarter, 400s, you can't convince anybody of this, but a 400-meter run, if you don't do it quite right, especially, you come around second turn of a 400 running full out. Like I ran the Penn relays once. I was on a master's relay team. So of course it meant the world to me to try to do well at this. Of course I went on way too fast. Coming around the second turn, it's just like a wall of pain and lactic acid and futility. And you feel like so helpless. You can't move. It's awful. I mean, that's like 400. And if you see the best people in the world finish the Olympic 400 and fall on the ground and lie on their back and breathe as fast as they can for like 5 minutes, these are the fittest people in the world. They're like the 800 guys. They're on the ground for 5 minutes trying to recover from that less than 2 minute thing. So yeah, I always said something similar. You take all the energy you've got and you ration it out over whatever distance you're given to race. So in that marathon, there's not much per minute. In the 400, there's that much per second. So there is yeah, it's an interesting game to play with yourself. See how much you can put into a minute. What did Kipling write? You can fill the unforgetting minute with 60 seconds worth of distance running. And yours is the earth and all that's in it. What's more, you can be a man, my son.
Just another question to Sid.
Yeah.
A lot of the running, you're a trail runner, is also the sense of the trail,
Yes.
which I wonder how you translated that into the treadmill. Because running on a hard surface is different from running.
Yes. So this is a work in progress. Where I did ask Chris during his 5 or 10 minutes that he was on the treadmill. I asked him how did his foot feel, right? So as a trail runner, feel is important, and that's why I don't run on roads. I like the more cushioned feel. So while developing this treadmill, the suspension is very different from other treadmills. We have a suspension system which has some chains and springs, and it has a certain amount of give to it. So in my opinion, we are much easier on the foot than a regular treadmill. I know a lot of you are familiar with some high-end treadmills. I'm not going to mention any names. And we aspire to be among some of the best, and we continuously tinker with the physics. But yes, we have paid attention to that so that, the suspension is giving, but at the same time, it doesn't bounce you. And if you run in the right location, so on the treadmills that you'll be able to try shortly, you'll find that there is a yellow arrow that points to more or less the center of the treadmill, and that's the pivot point. And if you run there, the treadmill is very, what I would say is it feels running like on harder ground. If you run a little bit forward, it feels like you're running on softer ground. These are all minute variations. But that's what the treadmill is able to do using the type of suspension we have. We intend to keep working on it so that it gives you, a trouble-free, because at the end of the day, that's what I was always worried about, not knowing what the treadmill is. When we're done with it, is it going to feel comfortable? Because if it doesn't feel comfortable, people are not going to want to use it, especially for long runs. I've had 2 people so far run half marathons on the treadmill, and they both said they were fine, no shin injuries, no ankle injuries, so they were very happy with it. And I think Chris, you said you might actually run the marathon on this one of these days, right?
I'd love to.
Okay, so so that would be an awesome test of whether we have succeeded in building something that is meant not only as fun, but as something that somebody can enjoy over a long run. But thank you for that question. Any other questions?
We let them try it out.
Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about the technology? Sid?
I have one quick question. Talk about your growth of from 2 years. What does success look like in 1 year or 5 years? Like if you goal to take a something you see being franchised? Like, what does it look like? I really like incorporating treadmill work.
Well, I don't know how the future will, treat us. And obviously, the reason I started it out in a space that I could curate, and with the help of Derek and Stuart, it's getting a distinct character, which I'm excited about. And if this format works, where we're calling it the 20-20-20, right? So 20-20-20 is 20 minutes of cardio, 20 minutes of strength, and then 20 minutes of a stretch into a yoga type thing. So that is going to be our signature package that we're going to offer. And if that finds favor, it's certainly something that we hope we can take to other locations as a franchise. The treadmill itself has its own legs, if you will. And if we have an opportunity to place it in other locations, I mean, like I said, I am really thrilled by the ability to maybe make it something that can make people healthier, because it is fun, right? So people that like to game might suddenly say, hey, let me go try that experience because I can still game. Now, we're not going to do anything violent, no Grand Theft Auto or anything like that. However, we're going to have, wholesome. There's ethics in gaming development, and we're going to follow those principles where, the games that we develop will foster teamwork, foster, personal achievements, knowledge, etc. So there's ways where the treadmill itself can migrate outside of what we have curated for it today. So as I said, we are hopeful of understanding how we can grow both as a boutique fitness gym, but also to release it into environments where it can do good. For example, we've been working with some physiotherapists recently, and they are fascinated by the fact that the treadmill goes downhill and uphill, so it assists people in their proprioception, and it'll help in probably a slightly speedier recovery for people that have been through an operation or an accident, something like that. The other area I'd like to explore is in senior citizens' homes, where, again, because we have this immersive nature, a lot of people in their later years suffer from, loss of balance. They fall because they're not getting around as much. Nobody wants to walk with them, and so if we can provide a safe, environment like this machine, they will be more engaged in walking. And if they can walk in their favorite park, or if they're from a different country, we can simulate a terrain from their native lands. These are ways where those people would be probably motivated to exercise and stay healthy for longer. So again, as I said, I really am hoping that this will transcend what a normal treadmill can do in ways that will benefit the maximum number of people.
Is there anything like it in cycling?
Well, we are going to put a cycle on it, because once we build the terrain and we have the same, system, we will be able to put a bicycle on it, and that's probably going to happen within the next month. We also have a rowing concept, so that you'll be able to row in an immersive environment. And what's going to be cool about the rowing concept is that each hand will have its own propulsion. So if you don't row evenly, the boat in virtual land will start steering to the left or the right. So yeah, the pod, the VersaFit pod, is equipped to handle other devices, and that's something that we're working on.
It's $1 billion company.
Pardon?
It's $1 billion company.
From your lips to God's ears. No, I mean, like I said, I don't want to be a humble braggart, is it? What is it?
Humble braggarts, I guess.
But I'm just fascinated by being able to deliver on just the thought and being able to be in the company of great athletes and such erudite people. And you know, I've read a lot of books about running, Scott Jurek, Christopher McDougall, and you know, there's a lifetime of knowledge and experience that I've gained from just being around running and you know hearing about some of the running stories and listening to you. I mean, it's so motivational. And I think some of the things they just said about whether it's a short race or a long race, you pace yourself. I think that's a metaphor for life, right? We all have a finite pace, and you try to pace yourself. And for every moment of every day, if you can gain the maximum from whatever God has given you as a body, you know, you're doing good. And so in my book, I'm fortunate that I'm actually able to live out some of my potential through this medium. So I'd like to demonstrate the machine now, if there are no other questions. And another friend of ours joined, Jim. Jim's an accomplished runner also, and Jim and Stuart found out that they know each other from some decades ago, right?
Similar second echelon college runners behind great runners that we've all heard of. It got all the press.
But so I'm going to demonstrate the machine real quick, and then we'll onboard all of you that like to try the machine. And
So Sid, what I was thinking, maybe what we could do is just finish the live feed, and
Okay.
then everyone can go around you and you could demonstrate it. So it's a little bit more interactive, and I
Sure,
can go in front of the camera,
absolutely, okay.
right?
So we're gonna
You
turn
can,
off-
you can finish. Just thank everyone for coming on the live feed.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. We're going to go to the demonstration now, and again, feel free to ask any questions after the formal presentation, and I'll do my best to answer them to your satisfaction. Okay, so Chris, that was fantastic.